Greetings, weary travelers. Come, warm yourself by the fire, and let us regale you with mighty tales, tales of adventure, tales of heroism, and of course, tales of Tamriel. I am your host, LotusOfDoom, and I am here with another fantastic guest this week. Ark couldn't join us this week, but in his stead, we have Aramithius from Written in Uncertainty. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thank you very much, Lotus. It is great to be here.
Yes, this has been a long time kind of in the works as well. That's been the running theme with a lot of these guest things is like actually getting everything organized and coming together. So This week, we should have a pretty interesting lore/world conversation, as I've been trying to cover all sorts of different topics with the series, and honestly, from being a listener of your show, you go way deeper into a lot of this stuff than I tend to, which is kind of fun as a different perspective to things. So.
Yeah, no, I try. It's just kind of, it's kind of just spending so much time kind of marinating in the text, and part of that was kind of how I started off with the Elder Scrolls lore as opposed to the games, but I suppose we'll get to that.
Sure.
But, yeah.
So, easy enough, since it's just going to be me and you this week, we don't really have to worry about introducing anybody else floating around. It'll be just the two of us discussing things this week. Thank you, everybody, for, all the kind words and everything. As of late, there was... instead of like specific iTunes review shoutouts and stuff, because we didn't have any word ones, I wanted to actually just specifically thank you, because we get to mention you by name and by specific comment when, of course, you leave a 5-star review on iTunes, which we totally appreciate. However, we don't get to shout other people out as they don't have review systems. But with this Spotify Unwrapped thing that's been going on, we do know a lot of you listen to us over there, and so many people have sent me very thoughtful messages or have tagged us in various things for us being like your number one most listened to podcast, or, this was the most minutes I've listened to on Spotify and everything like that. So it would take forever to just run through all of that, but I just wanted to say it is greatly appreciated. It's substantially more overwhelming than any of you might realize from this side of the mic, that so many of you listen to our inane shenanigans on this stuff, but it is greatly appreciated. So thank you very much for all of that. It's however you enjoy listening, watching, whatever with the show, I greatly appreciate it. And I'm glad that it entertains you, because it's a lot of fun to create the show. And knowing that anybody actually likes listening to it makes you kind of want to keep going with it, as I'm sure you can kind of attest to the same situation.
Oh, absolutely. It's just mind-blowing that there are people out there listening to the stuff that we put out, and it's just kind of like, okay, we just do this because we like from my part of it anyway, just because I like doing it, and this is just kind of just a byproduct of how I look at things and how and so on. So if there are people out there that are willing to kind of just listen to us doing this stuff, it's just great that we can reach so many people and just have a positive effect on people's lives as we do it. It's just wow. Frankly, it's just thank you so much to everyone who listens to our shows. It's just I'm a man of lots of words on quite a few topics, but on this one, it's just thank you, everyone. It's just I'm just really, really glad that we can help you enjoy little bits of your life and make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just it. I'm known for being rather wordy on different things as well. And it's like, this is one of the few that I don't really know how to adequately just say how much it's appreciated back. And just knowing that, you enjoy it makes me very pleased and makes me want to stick around doing this for basically as long as I'm capable of doing so. So, as for behind the scenes this week, other than Ark being probably getting ready to get rest because of weird time zones, as you and I had to discover which was a good time zone for us, as we kind of share an ocean, but we're on opposing sides of it. Time zones are rough, if anybody hadn't noticed that. But glad that we could just record a little bit earlier today. And yeah, I'm excited to have you. So I guess we can just kick off. There is very little official ESO news this week. The one thing I did want to shout out specifically in regards to that was Elder Scrolls Official did a stream that supported Extra Life. It was on December 1st, so it has passed. We didn't have a show in between when it happened, and it was kind of announced after we recorded and then was over before we recorded again, so I had no way to give a nudge in that direction. But as so many of you have helped with my Extra Life efforts, thank you for everything you've done for us. I'll get into that toward the end of the show as well. But hopefully everybody had fun with the ESO event one involved with Xbox. They had lots of giveaways. And I know Trivium was involved as well. So I'm very glad from just, I guess a joint interest perspective. The company that makes the game that I love to play the most also happens to support the same charity I do is really okay, well, that, again, this is why my criticisms of companies and stuff, they're moderately limited when it comes to this. I mean, I'm not going to just say everything's peachy keen all the time, but at the same time, it's I really love working with this company whenever I get the chance to. ZeniMax and Bethesda has been overall, in my opinion, especially amidst all the drama that happens in video games, I really do appreciate that they are what I would consider the more humanized version of a company, which I really appreciate. So,
absolutely.
But with that being said, the real reason that I brought you here was so that we can discuss what you're best at and lots of stuff that everybody likes grilling us on, which is the world of Elder Scrolls itself. Just one thing going back, which, I personally loved, it was the first time you and I got to chat, was during QuakeCon when we got to have our lore/game off. And that was super entertaining, and I learned several things, including the fact that not having this information in front of you when you're trying to recall it is way more complicated than it seems to be.
Oh, yeah.
But
that and there are multiple names for Mournhold.
Yeah,
That's
oh my
stuck
God.
in my head.
Yes, the biggest controversy of the whole thing. How many names can we come up with for Mournhold? But to start things off broadly, I'm kind of just interested in, to you, I've gone over a lot of this before, and this is your first time on the show, so I'd rather you kind of chat with this a little more. Starting broadly, what exactly is it about the Elder Scrolls series, the IP itself, that makes it special and has drawn you into your attachment to it? How did you get started with it, and what makes it a connection to you? Because obviously you've got quite a connection to this series as well.
It's evolved a fair bit. I kind of started off just kind of watching, looking over a friend's shoulder during philosophy class, and it's kind of that's a game where you can kind of dress up like the boatmen and look and put just wander around wielding a katana and a skirt at the same time. That looks really cool, and that was my introduction to Morrowind. So just in the middle of a philosophy class, I kid you not, just seeing this game being played, but back in 2002, when the education systems were in no way clued into what technology could do, and so you could get away with far more. So there was that was my kind of introduction. It's you're supposedly helping this bunch of people fulfill a prophecy, and it's kind of so how are you doing that? Are you actually the person? Yeah, I suppose so. Eventually, when I get around to it, was my friend's response for how the main quest of the Elder Scrolls 3 kind of happened. So a lot of it was kind of just watching over his shoulder, and just thinking that game looked really cool. When can I buy it? Then eventually I buy the thing, and just fall down this hole of I desperately want to be a Telvanni mage. That's still the apart from one playthrough, which is on my stream. That is probably every single playthrough of Morrowind I've done, bar maybe two. has been a Telvanni playthrough, and
Amazing.
I just kind of fell in love with just how weird it all was, because I was kind of grilling my friend for questions. It's like, how do I sign up to join the wizard house? They sound really cool from what you've talked about. They've told me to go to a council house, and it's you just go and they say, oh, it's big and it's a mushroom place. That can't be hard to find, right? And I arrive at Sadrith Mora and just
yeah, well, they're so unique too.
House.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, other than the fact that Sadrith Mora is just Mushroom Tower Central, just like of the main houses, like in Morrowind, everybody kind of like that's the first association most people make when you get into. There's plenty of weird shit in Morrowind, but that really is like, okay, these people live in giant mushroom towers. Like that's the first connection most people think of with Morrowind.
And you, just to break that illusion for everyone, go and watch The Dark Crystal. Wander around Sadrith Mora and then watch The Dark Crystal, and you will understand where all of the Telvanni aesthetic cues come from. The Skeksis in the Dark Crystal are a straight lift. Exactly where the Telvanni aesthetic comes from. I mean, bar the mushrooms. So much of the design and the shape of the buildings, the kind of outfits they're wearing, the general attitude of the house as well are just straight Skeksis. But anyway, but that was kind of my introduction to it, and I just did that. I then discovered modding, which was kind of the death of me really playing much of the games and getting involved in this and starting to get involved in the series, because I then had a whole bunch of technical support questions and went to the Bethesda forums for it around about 2005, 2006 was when I started with that, which of course breaks the game, so you can't actually play it and you spend more time running technical fixes than you do playing the thing, which also meant that it was the game that I wanted to play now was beyond my computer's capabilities. So I spent all of my time actually engaging with the lore content outside of the games. I always got involved with the forums. I found I didn't so much find the UESP as the Imperial Library as a place to go and read the books and just kind of sink it and get everything sunk in that way. That's where kind of my appreciation for the lore of the series kind of started. Kind of playing through the quest line of Morrowind, you realize that there's a lot of stuff going on, but you don't necessarily engage with it a whole heap apart from the story with Dagoth. But when I got involved with the forums, there were just so many other questions flying around. I was kind of, okay, so where on earth does all this stuff come from? What Chim? What's that? Why is everyone so fussed about the Dwemer? And just kind of taking part in all of those conversations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's something that I think the series is strengthened greatly by is the fact that even though the games are my major focus to it, the fact that so much of it is almost like with real history, it's just like your own knowledge of how things are in reality. You won't just know everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just kind of have to go around and talk about stuff with people, find things out, get sources, come up with ideas about how they might link. And I couldn't join in with that as much as I wanted to because a whole bunch of the conversations were happening in the US. So I would kind of paste a few messages on and then come back, and then 3/4 of the conversation was already finished by the time I woke up and got back to things. It's because the Atlantic got in the way.
Yeah, back to time zones being awful.
Yeah. Absolutely dreadful. But that was kind of my introduction to the lore of it, and eventually I decide, I'm just like, Oblivion's coming out. More sessions of watching over my friend's shoulder while they play it, and eventually I managed to get a PC that I think will run Skyrim, and I kind of play that through, and that kind of sinks me into the community as such, the sort of 2011, 2012 sort of time, around about the time that the Bethesda forums start to break up and people head off to places like Tamriel Vault and the TS Lore subreddit, and all that sort of thing. And I try and keep up with all the communities, fail miserably, and settle into various habits of the places that I go and the kinds of discussions that I have, which kind of skewed towards the weirder ones, because that's the kind of paradoxically that the weird metaphysical stuff is the easier stuff to get intellectual on, because you're confined to a specific set of kind of texts and characters. Whereas if you want to dig into the mundane stuff, you have to go into really minute detail from a whole bunch of places, and I'm lazy.
Yeah.
So
seconded.
Yeah. So that's kind of where it happened, and that was sort of the fandom itself has sort of evolved a bit over time, but that's sort of the tail end of 2012, 2013 was kind of the tail end of treating everything really quite academically in the Elder Scrolls fandom. There's still kind of traces of that, but there's still traces of that in places, but there's not the same kind of consistent rigor that there was when I kind of first signed up, if you like. And
I can almost kind of see maybe like the series was definitely much more niche originally. As each game, I mean, Skyrim joke aside, it's enormous. So what you know, you go all the way back to something like Arena, and I think like sales for that were originally like 8,000 copies or something hysterically low, but it was like, you know, that was back ages ago. And then subsequently, you know, when Morrowind itself, which was my jumping on point as well, but it was honestly, it wasn't the PC side of it. It was when it hit consoles that's where it made the connection. And once it hit consoles and opened up this entirely new market, despite how poorly Morrowind may have run on an Xbox originally, the series kind of found a new audience, and the amount of people have just grown exponentially every game. Oblivion was so much bigger than Morrowind, and Skyrim is comically massive. And despite the whole haha meme of ESO back when it launched being, this game sucks, dead game, blah, 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 the numbers for ESO have grown so much as well. As like the last time they talked about ESO numbers, it was like in the 19 million registered players type of thing, which that is a lot of people in regards of any game, let alone an active MMO. So it's just the numbers keep going up. They keep expanding in different directions, especially with a lot of the transmedia the series has, as they only have 2 books, which are definitely a little more esoteric in regards of that. Yep. But there have been, you know, there's tabletop things. There's Skyrim Monopoly. Skyrim's basically everywhere. But the Elder Scrolls has become such a household name. I wonder if that's why some of the sticklerness, that's not a word right there, but for the point of what I'm making, some of that was lost because just the pool of players and people involved has grown so much since it started.
Yeah, because right now it's kind of a niche of a niche, if you like, because being interested in the lore of the games is a niche in itself. There was, I'm trying to think, back just before the forums closed in about 2015 or so, there was kind of a "what does the lore mean to you" kind of post that got made. And in the more general forums, and a whole bunch of it was, I don't really pay that much attention. So it was a much smaller community even then. But I also think part of it is to do with how internet communication has changed, if you like. That it's not just that the Bethesda forums splintered and everyone went everywhere. It's that forums have evolved into Reddit, if you're lucky.
Yeah.
And that's about that's part of why it's the discourse. Oh dear Lord, I'm evolving into using phrases and all that. But that's why the the lore discussions have gone the way they have to a large degree, because the way that people discuss things on the internet has changed. And yeah, I'm long enough in the tooth to have seen that sort of thing happen. But it still kind of keeps you engaged with the community, because the same questions that keep on coming up, and the different perspectives that come to a lot of them, like the perennial, well, where did the Dwemer go?
Yes, the number one question.
Always someone asking that.
Yeah.
And it always will be asked. So there always will be this sort of fount of discussion and information and sources and people wanting to know those answers. We'll just keep the series lore going.
Right, and especially specifically even partly related to the name of your podcast with Written in Uncertainty, and you always use the phrase, the gray maybe. One of the strengths to allow such discussion, so to speak, with this series compared to other series where it's just like, here's, what is and isn't in the... Everything being this unreliable narrator and a source that oftentimes it's like, well, it's a source of a source, or this has been referenced, but okay, is that necessarily... Because there's been obviously tons of writers over the years and everything like that. Most controversial, obviously, is, the awesomeness that Michael Kirkbride has brought in and the incredible weirdness that Michael Kirkbride has brought in, however you want to view either of those sides. But there's so many different avenues to so many different things, because some of the Elder Scrolls is very straightforward, very understandable, very grounded for lack of a better word. Skyrim was, it's a Scandinavian type of culture. It's got a Viking feel, and it's like dragons, even though Elder Scrolls has its own unique take on dragons are something that a lot of people that enjoy fantasy can at least make the connection to. Whereas if you say, here's a scrib, most people are going to be like, what the hell's a scrib? Like, so it's, there's a mix of kind of more specific stuff to the series, and also a broad scope, which I think helps kind of make it so there's a little of something for each group, depending upon your interest level. Yeah. And the fact that so much of it is up for debate, that's kind of how the series is written, is in a debatable fashion, is to allow that type of stuff. And it occasionally gets into these awkward situations of, well, what's canon, what isn't canon, and all of this, which I actually kind of like to talk about, because this will be very, I like whenever we've talked about some of this stuff, your kind of take on it, because even that starts to get debatable, which is weird, because then it's like, okay, well, this series really is almost, it's what you make of it. And that's why so many people have such different takes on it, because there is very rarely anything just written in stone in this series.
Yeah, and it is just a fundamental part of the DNA of it, frankly, because the example of it for the way the games are is the endings to Daggerfall. Yes. Because you've had Daggerfall with multiple endings, and so which is the canon ending? Right. They said they're gonna okay, let's make all of them the canon ending and not invalidate anyone's experiences or whatever. But it goes back even more to that. So you go to the roots of the series as Tamriel as a tabletop role-playing setting for the developers, apparently. But you look at how the tabletop role-playing is as a setting. Just to give you an example, you'll have a book that says this is how Eberron is, or this is how Clan Tzimisce works in Vampire the Masquerade, or this is how creation is in Exalted, or whatever setting. You'll have what the setting books say the thing is, and then the players get their hands on it. And even if you have kind of a predetermined campaign where you have to, say, wind your way up Firetop Mountain and slay the Warlock, what is then canon for those players, or what the end result of that is. Do the players kill the warlock? Do they go up there and have a nice cup of tea with him and chat over some new spells? Whatever happens is in the hands of the players. And that sort of, as a kind of a base inspiration for Tamriel, I think has stuck with the series, that idea of player agency kind of fundamentally undermines the idea of having a strict canon to start with, at the very least, insofar as the game narratives are concerned.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. And it's why one of the things, it's kind of what I've long speculated is why this series can connect with so many people so easily. Because we've kind of, discussed it on the Elder Scrolls Lorecast a couple times, where when we get into some of the stranger topics, but like still surface level of them, you get a little bit of the, like, we were talking wacky theories once and stuff like that. And it kind of gets to be like, okay, well, this isn't, it's very rare that the developers are like, well, here's this. Like, one of the examples was on the Skyrim bug jars. Yep. That's kind of like, okay, well, this doesn't have a deeper meaning because we didn't finish this quest. Okay, that's less ambiguous. Other stuff is a little more like, well, we're not going to overtly say that's not a thing, but here's the direction. And to your point, Daggerfall was kind of the first one. They introduced the Dragon Break thing, which we won't necessarily dive bomb into that because we'll go long even for Tales if we start trying to do that. But as a concept, again, I've joked that it's like, well, as long as you don't make that the ultimate MacGuffin to every conflict, which they honestly don't seem to do that or haven't really, it's kind of a neat get out of jail free card, but also it's like, here's our way of continuing the story without invalidating your experience going forward. Like, you still did you. Like, this is still a thing. And then what happens going forward will leave in sort of an ambiguous fashion as to how the story progressed, with like more of a nod to a game rather than, yeah, your character totally just did this and this and this. It's why I'm very curious going forward in the series, whenever that may be, with, I guess, spoilers. If you haven't played through the Dark Brotherhood storyline, this is the one I want to reference from Skyrim. So if you don't want to know how the Dark Brotherhood storyline could end, like, one of the potential endings is you take out the Emperor, which that can't really be so much brushed under the rug super simply, because either the Emperor is there going forward. Now, depending also largely on how far in the future we go for the next one, there needs to be some reference to, okay, well, did we have an Emperor switch? Did we not? Like, because the Dark Brotherhood was already in turmoil, because theoretically you can eliminate the Dark Brotherhood right out the gate.
you have a whole bunch of get out clauses with that. For those specific examples, the way that I reckon they're going to get around them is that you have Titus Mead potentially being assassinated, or you have Titus Mead definitely being assassinated, potentially by the Dark Brotherhood. The order of operations be that it could be in retaliation for a strike against the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary in Skyrim, or it was as a result the Penitus Oculatus burned the place down. You will have both of those events happening, but being presented in such a way that the order in which they happen is ambiguous. So one happens before one could happen as a result of player actions. One happens as a response to the player actions. That's relatively simple to resolve, I think.
Exactly, and you don't necessarily in any of those situations undermine how the person played out their quest. It's like a vague reference to that being the situation. You're naturally going to connect your story to fill in those blanks. It's like, well, I did this, so clearly that was how this came about, which is something that I do really like with the series.
The only one where I think that isn't going to happen is the Civil War, because they've inserted a very neat little get out clause to say the Empire wins in the end.
Yes.
Because do you know where I'm going with this?
I think I do. Go on. I think I know what you're talking about, but elaborate for everybody what you're...
Yeah, when you complete the Stormcloak quest line, in 2 fortresses, one is Fort Newgrad, and I can't remember the name of the other one. There's,
I don't know off the top of my head.
There's a thing called the Stormcloak Missive, and it's a plea from the garrison commanders to Ulfric to please send more troops. We need to reinforce these bits, need to reinforce this area. The ice in the pass is melting. We're pretty certain there's a legion on the other side. We need to hold them here, otherwise all of our gains will be lost. That sort of thing. So there's plainly stuff being set up to happen post Skyrim that will potentially allow for either further conflict for either Ulfric or Tullius, whichever one you didn't kill in the storyline, to be killed, or potentially then for the Empire to sweep in and take the place back with a fully trained proper legion, as opposed to the kind of local recruits and farm boys that Tullius complains he has to work with in the game.
Right. So no matter what, it's like both of your choices could have mattered, but regardless of the situation, it's like, here is what happened post your game. So now to get the story in a direction that we can actually write for, here we go. This has been the end result. So what you individually did is kind of just do you fill in the blank of I did this, or I did this, but then it was undermined by said missive type of thing. You know what I mean? Like, so it's a good way of being able to extend the story, but also not just being like, nope, you chose the wrong ending. Too bad. That didn't happen now. Like,
yeah. There's enough to work with there, but
exactly. And also, I mean, again, the joke that we always make is we don't even know when we're getting the next Elder Scrolls anyways, but the jumps in time gaps in the series are also not necessarily consistent either. We've had short jumps between games, and we've actually had rather large jumps in between individual games. Oblivion to Skyrim being we got a decent amount of things happened that we only hear about during that time period. So if we don't necessarily directly, I mean, the Thalmor threat is like still very much looming at the end of the Elder Scrolls Skyrim, but I almost wonder, and I don't know if maybe that's not a good direction for them to take, because I question if people would not like this, but like if we pick up an Elder Scrolls 6 and it's like, oh, by the way, 150 years have passed and the Thalmor were totally wiped out, or the Thalmor totally took over in the Empire, it's like, oh, wait, we're not doing that? We're not involved with that one? Like, there's no guarantee that that's necessarily where the next game's heading. It might be fallout from the situation. What's happening as a rebuilding of maybe a war that does happen. Like, that isn't necessarily the next step, because it certainly wouldn't be the first time the series has had major map-changing events, like with the Red Year and stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, no, that's not in a game. That was in between games. You don't experience that. It's like, whoa, what? Yeah. Really?
Well, that one in particular was a request from Kirkbride, if I remember correctly.
Okay.
That one was literally that one was something like, okay, I've made this setting what it is. Me and my team made this setting what it is. No one else gets to play with my toys. Smash.
That's to be fair, knowing that, kudos that they let him do that, because I prefer it that way. Sometimes I like letting what happened be what happened, and that's fine that you have different writers and stuff like that, but you can move on from that without necessarily need to tinker with what happened prior to, which I like that, because it lets Morrowind and all its weirdness stay Morrowind and all its weirdness. Like, it doesn't take that away.
Yeah, and I should probably say that's based on my hazy memories of it, and it's a huge oversimplification in any case. So I may be horribly misrepresenting stuff.
Sure, but I mean, a lot of this, it's kind of our interpretations of to the best of our knowledge.
Yeah, but the time gap thing it's kind of that's a little difficult to gauge because the gap between Oblivion and Skyrim is the first time that happened. All of the other 4 games all happened within the lifetime of Uriel Septim VII.
Right.
So,
and exactly. The other ones are actually kind of comically condensed when you think about it, like compared to some of the others. Like, wow, there is it. I mean, kind of the same way that one of the things with Elder Scrolls Online, it's like, man, how many life world-changing events can happen to one set of people? Like, this is just one catastrophe after another. You got Daedric incursions, and also there's another set of Daedric incursions. It's like, oh, okay, well, also the dragons have returned to spirit. Oh my god! And it's like, vampires and werewolves. Like, man, this time period, which granted the interregnum is a mess. It's kind of filling out exactly what a mess it was. But it's just funny to think about, like, at certain points, which, it's varied over time periods. It's kind of amusing how much happens for chunks of time, which I guess, kind of relates to real life things. You can have, 2020, what didn't happen jammed into 2020? It was just, you couldn't catch up with the previous news before you already had another thing that had drowned out the previous disaster that everybody was just talking about. Like, you couldn't even really stay focused on one thing because there was always some massive news break that was following it up. You've got that almost happening with ESO and like some of the games as well. It's you get all of that happening in these periods of time, and then you have like the period of like right after the Alessian Rebellion where it was like, and then this 1,000 years goes by and everything was just fine. It's like, well, that was more relaxing than the constant turmoil and death everywhere after it was spawned by turmoil and death, of course. But
and with the Alessians, there is also the dragon break, so everything is squiffy time-wise. Anyway,
was it really 1,000 years? Who even knows?
Yeah, some places will say 1,008, some places will say 200, etc.
Yep, exactly.
But to your other point, I think there is another get-out clause to carry on using the phrase. In terms of how things are done, I don't think it's it's a little bit more difficult to say when there's NPCs involved, but when it comes to player characters doing stuff, there's a phrase from, I think it's Nabini Maisa or something like that, or Nabi Maisa. I can't precisely remember her name. She was an Ashland, an Ursulaku Ashlander wise woman, who gives you the prophecies of the Nerevarine. And one of the lines that's part of that is whatever they turn their hand to, that shall be done. Whatever they leave incomplete, that shall be done. I've seen it said that line is basically a way of the devs saying, all of the quests happen, just not necessarily by you.
Yeah. So
the Vestige definitely does the main quest, because the Vestige will be referred to in doing those events, and so on anyway. But everything else up for grabs with other people.
Sure. That's actually really cool, because that's like a good tie-in where it's like, again, without necessarily requiring you to do everything or invalidating what you do throughout the games, it gets to be like, well, this is how we're moving this forward from a narrative perspective as well. So that's again, the writing to this series, which was not something that drew me in originally. Originally, it was, this is super weird, and what am I doing in this game? And it got to the point where I kept trying to find new things that I was like, the game won't let me do this. Oh my God, I can totally do this. And it just kept spiraling. And then years later, I started to be like, well, okay, I love this series, and I started to experience, some more of the weird games, and their offshoots and stuff like that. And as a side effect, you start getting different story, different lore, and the stories start being more impactful, because I've long said that it's like, I've loved the stories. I think they're great, and the quests and everything like that, they're well done, they're interesting, but originally my hook to the series was the setting and being able to be just whatever the hell I kind of wanted in the setting. And it was very, very gamified for me. And then mine expanded out into, oh, I like this as more than just a game. I like this as an entity, a series itself.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of, this is a place where you could be, like, I could kind of get to know Pelgiad and Caldera and all of those locations and that sort of thing. But yeah, it kind of, it's just kind of steadily expands and stuff. But that weirdness is kind of one of the initial hooks, like we say, the Mushroom Towers.
Yeah.
And I should probably shout out to El Timtor in
Yes.
chat has pointed out, the wise woman, if you want to look up her dialogue, is Nibani Mesa.
I always
I
thank
had absolutely
chat for
butchered it in my head.
being able to remember all the fine details that I never can. So that's how we get
Yeah.
the correct thing.
Nope.
So,
Yeah, chat keeps us honest.
Yes,
It is
exactly.
A magnificent thing. Thank you.
the benefits of having a live version of this before we edit it down, they make sure we don't sound like idiots in the recorded version.
Oh, something like anyway.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. I kind of like how that is, and it's actually was brought up in chat, and you had mentioned, well, let's try to see if we could actually delve into it, and it's kind of where I'd like to go next. We'll go back to more of our favorite bits later, but the thing that I wanted to address now, and where there was mentions of like some of the situations relating to like retcons, quote unquote, and more so, there's the game aspect and the story aspect to this, because it's still an evolving series. Is a lot of this, as we said, isn't set in stone, but it's also being written by there's a lot of writers involved with this, and they might not all have the same direction in mind. Everyone has their own takes on situation. But given that, the series from its roots has evolved, and, you know, to some people they've said devolved at certain points and stuff, however you want to get into that. But how exactly, we'll start with a lore perspective or like story perspective of some of the evolutions the series has taken, and then we can make, you know, reference to, since I've played like a lot of the old games, I still haven't gotten through all of them. There have been a lot of changes from story and gameplay, both for good and for bad, I think, in some situations, depending upon your take on it exactly.
Yeah, well, the one thing that kind of you always have to bear in mind in terms of fan reactions, at least, is that they will always hate it.
Valid.
This has been a consistent thing throughout the Elder Scrolls. I literally did I did a piece for the Telmora Independent Press. I don't think it got published before they folded, but it's just going through. But from the questions and the interviews I did for that, just for what everyone's reactions were for each game, is that everyone hated everything every single time.
Yeah. Every game has gotten worse, and the series is totally terrible, even though it keeps expanding and getting bigger.
Yeah, because one of the lines for the Elder Scrolls 3 was that this isn't Daggerfall. This was just a cut down Hexen clone with pretty graphics. That was it. They did not like it. But yeah, and sorry, I've just completely blanked on the other bits of your conversation as well. I'm fixating on bits and the stuff of Cyrodiil is into jungle in the Elder Scrolls 4 is another big one.
Yes, which then I guess just to touch on that one, which I've found funny over the years, because that's a evolution of a story / a retcon / whatever the situation, and it's even had to evolve its own evolution as the series has gone on, because originally they were like, oh, well, you see, it used to be a jungle, and then it changed. Like, okay, that's one of the theory situations. It was like, oh, all right, sure, fine, that's a particular. And then when Elder Scrolls Online came out and it was not a jungle again, everybody was like, oh shit. Well, that doesn't work anymore. It was misquoted was what it was. And it's like, okay, we've just evolved the evolved version of an area, because again, the series keeps going forward. In some cases, going forward by also going backwards to a previous time zone. But you have these things where it's like they need to keep addressing a certain situation. So now it's like, well, maybe it was just a typographical error. Maybe that's not what he meant. Maybe he didn't mean literal jungle. Because again,
but then there's also books in there that say no, this isn't a typographical error. How can you talk about this? Because there's whole phrases in Cyrodiilic poetry that specifically only apply to jungle.
Right.
This can't be a typographical error.
Exactly. So it leaves you just with people on both sides trying to justify why something looks like it does, and then you get it from the technical side of things where, as was, Oblivion was basically pushing the Xbox 360 to the brink of lighting on fire just to get it to run. So making a super dense jungle was going to be problematic from a technical standpoint.
Yep.
So, okay, maybe more of a temperate region would work because we can do that. And I remember even blades of grass, the amount of them that were out there were causing disk speed run errors.
Wow.
Which I remember seeing this. I actually want to say it might have been in the No Clip documentary on the history of the Elder Scrolls with Bethesda. If it's not from that, watch that anyways. They did a great job with it. But I remember, and I'm pretty sure this is where it's from, but basically they had to change where the grass was programmed on the disk because it was trying to read it so fast, it would spin too quickly. And it was causing like disk read errors. So if they moved it would be able to process the blades quicker. And it's just like, you get a very technical reason why, super lush, dense jungle might not work so well here. And then with Elder Scrolls Online, obviously the technical limitation might not be there anymore because Elder Scrolls Online is, it's an MMO. The game is massive. But even going back at the situation, there's two things you can specifically look at. One, you can't deny that nostalgia always helps people relate to things. So
yes, which they have milked.
Yeah, they sure have. Which for better or worse, whatever. With Cyrodiil, one of the things was, well, if this looks similar, we can't have all the structures be exactly the same because that's getting a little hard to buy. But it's like, okay, so we need to make this similar so people can relate to Cyrodiil, which, okay, I get it. The other thing is, for the design of a 3-war faction alliance PvP zone, you need to have things done in a way that benefits the gameplay. If the jungles are super thick and dense, it's like, well, is that going to cause slowdown during fights? What if we need to keep here? We need to have the map somewhat, not symmetrical, but it needs to have some type of triangular connection so that one side isn't massively overpowered compared to the other, because then why play a weaker faction? That's just an unfair advantage to one side. So you get this weird thing of, for gameplay balance and performance, as well as a nostalgia take, you need to kind of not just throw that in the trash either.
Yeah.
Where then it's like, well, now it kind of double solidified. Okay, maybe not jungle necessarily. So.
Yeah, I think they kind of inherited a lot of that from Dark Ages of Camelot, if I remember my game's history correctly, because that's one of the things that Firewall worked on before ESO, so they were looking to emulate that sort of gameplay, and of course for that there's horses. At least I think there were. So there's kind of that's that sort of gameplay and the style of it. But from a lore perspective, they've done a great job of actually making the whole thing make a bit more sense.
Yes.
Because there's I think it's the text is Subtropical Cyrodiil, a speculation that points out that that the towers, or the white gold tower, if whoever controls that, it automatically defaults to what people consider the people controlling it have considered to be a comfortable climate.
Right, like their home, so to speak. Like what feels like home to them when you control the tower is what the surrounding of Cyrodiil will mimic that.
Yeah. So how that works is that when the aliens controlled it, it was a subtropical paradise because that's the way the aliens liked it. When the Alessian Rebellion happened, then the men controlled the tower, and then it mimicked the northern climes a bit more, became a bit more temperate, and so on. What we see in ESO is a time period when no one controls the tower, so it's been held by men for however long. Starts a starts a slow decline from that back into its default state, whatever that default state is.
Sure. Which temperate would make sense in that area as well, just because when you look at the connecting diagonal, on the diagonals, you've got, Craglorn is definitely more temperate, but then if you go off to the east, you're getting the Skyrim side. If you go too far to the south, you get the jungle aspect that we're talking about, the swamp region. You've got the savanna/desert off to, on this side. So it's it kind of makes sense that it would almost be a more neutral type of climate than one extreme.
Although that said, this theory works that it's working its way back towards being jungle, because by the point that Tiber Septim's conquest happens, we have the first edition pocket guide to the Empire, which says that the quote that everyone will throw at you with this is that Cyrodiil is endless jungle, is the line. That was written during Septim's lifetime, during Tiber's lifetime. So the terrain in ESO is transforming steadily into jungle. It needs to be doing that in order for the timelines to make sense there.
Yep.
However, when you go to the Elder Scrolls 3, you are also told it is jungle. You are told it is jungle in precisely the same way that the Pocket Guide to the Empire, written during Tiber's lifetime, says so. It's a direct lift from the book.
Right.
So the people telling you that, are just quoting texts that were written hundreds of years beforehand and are out of date.
Sure.
So it could quite easily, by the time Elder Scrolls 3 rolls around, or actually be Temperate Forest, and the scholars just quoting from books. So by the time Oblivion rolls around 16 game years later, then it could already be a temperate forest, and that's all fine. The only thing you really have to square is why the default thing of Cyrodiil is a jungle. And why it is that way when Tiber comes around, and all of the various things about, Tiber used Chim to make it into something more temperate, or he just made everyone think that was what was going on, and he instead futzed with the White Gold Tower to change it around, which is entirely in character for Tiber.
Yeah, that seems pretty on brand as well. So
self-propagandizing.
Yeah.
Well, whatever.
Yeah, much more noble in history than in actuality with him. So, I definitely can see that being the case, and that's actually, it's interesting because that's where, going back to where we started, that's where something as simple as a landscape becomes a topic of debate for people. There's always something you can debate over, and it's very rare are they going to just straight up tell you no, that's not a thing. And to be fair, until the series ends, which I don't understand why it would, because it is an absolute cash cow. But that aside, I don't really think there's any way to fully say that anything is entirely off the table of possibility, because there's the ability for them to change things in a direction based on who the writers are. The other thing is, again, without sounding cynical, there is corporate intervention, which changes stuff. We ended up, which caused a ton of problems, quote unquote, with some people in the community, going back to the Season of the Dragon, where we had Elsewhere, and it was one of those situations where everybody was up in arms that we had dragons back. And there was that sort of misquoted thing, because dragons weren't just flying around running amok. Everybody was under the impression they were all dead, which isn't actually true. And to be fair, even going into that, they actually had a decent amount of wiggle room. I remember I was kind of on your side of the fence with this, where originally where there was a lot of chaos, I'm like, the only thing I was like, well, okay, maybe you don't have 10,000 dragons, but then we have an event where we kill 1 million dragons. All right, well, okay, that's so much for that. But it is, you've got to account for the gameplay loop. You can't run an event and not kill dragons. And they're outside of said event, where they're trying to draw people into the event to contribute because it was a animal charity event. And it's okay, well, that's going to a good cause. I don't care that much type of deal. But largely the appearance of the dragons aren't just, oh, by the way, you go to Deshaun now and dragons are just nuking everything. That would have been a little weird had they tried doing something like that. But for the most part, the series actually kept the dragons in the undocumented region of where they emerged from because, okay, well, yeah, they were more in hiding than wiped out. Plenty of them died and stuff like that. That's fine. But the fact of assuming that there were no dragons also wasn't necessarily the case. So they were able to utilize them for one year in the story. And they haven't just drilled home the dragon concept since then. It really did relate to that one season with this one story that relates to them. And there's plenty of nods to it and stuff like that. But it wasn't just like, okay, dragons inherit Tamriel again. This is totally a thing. It wasn't quite taken in that direction. So, and that was like another major contention when that whole thing dropped because, man, there were a lot of angry people during that trailer.
Oh, yes. Yes. I remember Ag frothing at the mouth.
Yeah, he was very displeased at first.
Yeah.
But again, one of the benefits to chatting with Agello, so shout out to Agello, hey buddy, we giving him information on how there was plausibility to the change. He definitely was like, oh, okay, he seemed more on board with that when you could show reasoning behind it. Granted, the knee-jerk reaction might be like, what the, but when you show that it's like, well, there's potential, and granted it can be taken way, way too far, where it's just like, oh yeah, every dungeon now has a dragon, and you're a dragon, you fly on dragons. Like, okay, well, that very easily could have been abused, but I actually don't really think it was. So, like, other than the gameplay loops, but again, one major thing you need to or keep in mind when it comes to these things is, from a gameplay perspective, you need some ability to have a gameplay loop that allows you to repeat an action for some type of longevity to playing. And if you want to get too nitpicky, none of this makes any sense. I mean, other than the fact that, like, it's all fantasy, but, like, this wouldn't make sense because then you theoretically shouldn't be able to just keep rerunning dungeons for gear. Like, it wouldn't make sense. You're not going to fight Selene 400 times because you already killed Selene or KO'd Selene. It's like, the stories only repeat themselves from a gameplay perspective. It's the first playthrough that it kind of gives you your grounding, and then the gameplay loop, you kind of just, okay, that's the gamey side of the story, so...
Yeah, there has to be that kind of disconnect between gameplay and lore, because frankly, the size of the Imperial City in Oblivion is stupid compared to what it's supposed to be. The size of Whiterun in the Elder Scrolls V, even on its own terms,
is hysterical.
Is silly.
Yeah,
because the Cloud District is one building.
Yeah, my street has a larger population than all of Whiterun. So it's like, yeah, all right. Again, context to the fantasy.
Yeah, you've got to kind of disconnect what the game is showing you as a slice of life to tell the story, and what the kind of the broader lore and what the broader setting is supposed to be.
Right.
Which you can extend that in many and various directions, and or just extend it as far as you like, frankly, because it's your own head. No one's telling you what to think. Yeah,
that's a big thing. This is also something that I've had come up many times. Several people mentioned it back on the Lorecast episode that I had mentioned when we were talking about, like, wacky theories and stuff like that. And I'm like, just because I don't personally agree with something, it's like, no, this does, like, nah. Fallout and Elder Scrolls are not in the same universe. Like, if that's how you want to play your two games, you're not hurting anybody else doing it that way. It might be hard to, again, not necessarily hard, but for many people, this is your experience. If that's really what you want to do, that's fine. You might have a harder time making a valid point when you're trying to debate that, which is where I'm like, well, if you're going to be doing a debate, you kind of do need to rely on at least some form of deductive reasoning where you can explain your point or back up what your theory is with something in game. But if you're not doing that and you're just playing Fallout 4 and you're like, yep, this is 500 years after Skyrim ended. I mean, okay. I mean, that's on you. You do you. It's your experience. Totally have fun with it. But it's just, if you're going to then want to logically kind of argue your point, it might be a little harder to do in many cases. And that's where I find it determines, like, what do I consider part of the series? Because I kind of like to go on what you can explain, what the series kind of nudges you in that direction. That's how I like to play it through. Yeah. So I'm always like, oh yeah, and it even varies amongst us that do that. But, that's the only time that I feel that ever matters, is if you're trying to debate a point or something like that.
Yeah, it's for me, the core question is, does it fit with what we already think we know when presented with any new piece of information or any new theory about the world and how that works? It's not, is this true, or is this canon, or whatever other term you want to put into it.
Sure.
It's just, does it fit with our other and with our existing base of knowledge, or does it not? If you want to say, well, Tiber Septim was actually a stallion, that goes against quite a few things, and you can point out where it does. Whereas if you want to start talking about what the towers do, say, and the nature of Chim, the kind of the weirder side, again, going back to the point that that metaphysics lore is lazy people's lore, there's not a whole heap of sources you have to go through for that to try and make your case. So there's a lot more kind of white space, and so long as you can make it fit those few pieces, then most things, or then quite a few things, will fly.
Right.
So.
And one of the things that I mean, you do much more than I do, which, again, I like, because it always shows the different aspects to the community. I definitely like the stories, the lore, and just kind of playing through it. One thing that you do, and it's why I actually enjoy listening to your show, is a lot of times you'll delve deep into topics and relate them philosophically or otherwise to either something on the forums that might be debated or real life counterparts, which is kind of neat to listen to, because it's not something I do myself. So hearing somebody else do it and oftentimes with you, it's like find some type of logical connection between the two, or the basis behind something, like where this was, okay, yes, this seems super unique, but what did this actually unique concept spawn off of, like, in real life? Like, where did this come from? Like, what is this based on, either in real life religion, real life mythology, something like that? And that's, like, one of the things that I like listening to, but I'm much more, personally, I'm like a passive observer in that part, because it's something that I don't do. I'm kind of more of like, yep, you portray the story, I will make a mess of the world you make, and that is my fun. And I like knowing all the connections and story, but then it's kind of fun to listen to how you can connect that to things outside of the game itself too, which is, I like that quite a bit when people do that.
Yeah, because there is a basis for lots of stuff. When you kind of see what those sort of connections are, you can kind of build on it and say, well, if A is kind of hinting at B, then what happens if C, which B references, is also the case with A, if you like, just to use some very, very awkward logic language. And that sort of thing, and just kind of messing around with concepts that are possible and probable, and seeing how they go. Again, going back to kind of does it fit with what we already think we know? Is kind of does it fit? Does it feel the same sort of thing? Like I've just seeing you slinging stuff in chat. I've heard Coda compared to the ending of the Bhagavad Gita, because that ends in an argument between two cosmic beings, which is kind of how Coda ends. And trying to dig things out from that, there's influences from Thelema in the 36 Lessons. I'm just trying to think what else we can pull from here. Trying to say that trying to say that Skyrim is based on Scandinavian culture seems cheap, but it's true.
Exactly. It's like it's super, super dumbed down, but it's also like, oh, okay. Also, Oblivion sans the Daedric, assault. Yeah, cool. So it's medieval Europe. Like it's like you can be very reductive when describing certain things.
Oh,
but
and the one where it's actually 1-to-1, that it's the one example where I will accept a culture as a 1-to-1 lift from the real world is Red Guards and feudal Japan.
Oh my, which is one of the main reasons I love their armor styling so much, because I'm fascinated with feudal Japan, like clothing, armor, stuff like weaponry and stuff. I've always thought that looks just really, really awesome. So yeah, that was honestly back with Morrowind, and even the tie into the Akaviri and stuff like that, because you get a lot of it with the blades as well. The weird samurai influence in a series that's, again, there's cultures all over the place that are derivatives of real life things, and then some weird stuff like glass and all that stuff. But like that samurai aesthetic that is part of that was one of the first ones that was like, this is awesome. I love this. I don't understand what's happening, but I love it.
It's not just the aesthetic either. It is literally parts of Yokudan history are copy pasta feudal Japan history.
Yeah,
they've just filed the serial numbers off. It is terrifying. It's just okay. So this guy is reasserting national identity. Okay, so he's Oda Nobunaga. He rises from a peasant background and initiates a sword hunt. Okay, so he's Hideyoshi.
Yeah,
it was just so much fun. But that's the only time I will accept.
Yeah, like a straight 1-to-1. Like this is just straight up. This happened like in this.
Yeah.
And that's just it. It's like there's so many avenues that you can enjoy all of this from. And it's kind of what avenue is the one that you connect with, which actually kind of like brings me to not necessarily closing, but like one of the things that I always love knowing what people, because again, so many of us have so many different connections and love the series in different ways for whatever reason. What would you say is either like some of your favorite parts of the lore itself / some of your favorite draws to the series, like as a whole? You had mentioned obviously Hell's Telvanni, with your onboard Morrowind, so that to a degree I assume connects somewhat because that's your initial pull. But like lore wise, story wise, area wise, like what are some of your favorite aspects of the series?
The religious cultures and the metaphysics are kind of my home playground, if you like. Just to kind of go back on the Elder Scrolls fandom historical side for a second. My kind of big into all the metaphysics was the Amaranth Hunt, which was an event in the the Bethesda forums where Kirkbride basically posted some stuff in a thread discussing about what sort of a thing Vivek was, and he's just kind of like, oh, there is this thing called the Amaranth, by the way, and that he'd sort of mentioned in a previous thread. Oh, no one's achieved it yet, with an asterisk, and except in asterisk going, except for this one thing being or concept which I hit a long time ago. Yeah. And that spawned I think 13 threads in total, going on for about 7 months on the forums, just saying what on earth could this be? What kind of, and kind of periodically just Kirkbride would drop in and trickle hints here and there.
That's funny.
And just this frenzy of, well, what does this match with this? No, what about this, that, and the other? Just being part of that kind of a thing, just to work out all of this weird metaphysical stuff and how it all connected was just so much fun. It was just kind of that's when I kind of sunk into the to kind of the deep end of the lore pool, if you like.
Yep.
And it kind of just took me from there. it's difficult for me to say that there's one specific thing, because I've spent so much more time reading the books than I have playing the games.
Sure.
If I can put it that way.
Yeah, sure.
So it's just the presence of the books in formats that you can read outside the games, as well. Just kind of be there and pull things together and build all this theory out of, and have all this lore present. It's just absolutely what keeps me coming back to the whole thing.
Sure, sure. The available the availability to all of this in a cross-media form is also really helpful. I mean, it's constantly brought up, everybody knows the UESP and stuff like that. But as somebody who also really swears by the Imperial Library, if you're looking for like verbatim text and actual just all the ones that they're similar in fashion of documentation of things within the series, but one of the strengths of the Imperial Library is the almost militant organization of not just the text in game, but forum readings. There's so much. Just look, whatever you're trying to make of it. If you're looking for what did someone say on a forum post from this, it's like, oh, well, I found it. And it's usually, you're going to find that actually on the Imperial Library more than you would find it on something like the UESP, which is more of a Wikipedia for all Elder Scrolls stuff, which I think is a very unique strength of the Imperial Library itself, is having that documentation.
Absolutely. It's kind of one of the best places to go for an archive of the Elder Scrolls fandom.
Yeah.
Short of getting any of us who remember what went on and getting us to sit down and spiel at you.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Very cool. Well, I appreciate that. That was actually really good. I being able to just get the different perspectives on that. I've also liked that chat has devolved into various Coda discussions, because that always happens whenever you bring up anything Coda related.
Absolutely. And Coda is awesome. Go read it. It's fantastic.
It's funny. Yeah. I can even, as someone who does not make any bones about the fact that I do not like Coda as a concept to the series, I also will say, go read Coda, which is going to sound weird, because it's definitely a head trip, so to speak. And it is super strangely fourth wall breaking way of writing, which creativity, I will say, because again, it's more of the setting and some of the stuff that is really not something that I necessarily like. But for lack of a better word, the unique weirdness of it is totally worth experiencing it. Whether you like it or not is kind of almost irrelevant, because I tend to fall on the side where it's it's fine in and of itself, but it's not super a thing for me. It has the best way I can explain it is the same way that as much as I rip on Battlespire, because I will never stop ripping on Battlespire, Battlespire is the ultimate example of, even though I don't feel like something is, well, I actually not saying that code is not well done. Battlespire is not well done from a technical standpoint. It is riddled with bugs. It has tons of technical problems. However, it's not without merit. And one of the things that I really love about Battlespire, and I actually kind of like, we can get into it when we talk about Tales with some of the new expansion stuff. We won't spoil stuff, so don't worry about that. But the feel, the vibe, however you want to describe it, that Battlespire has is still relatively unique to the series, because it is a twisted look at the Daedra, as opposed to the more, it's an evil monster that you need to fight back in a lot of Daedric situations. Battlespire, yes, Dagon is your adversary, but there is some weirdness and just the feel, for lack of a better word, and I way to describe it, of Battlespire is unique. It's unsettling for various reasons. And That's one of the things that I actually really do appreciate about Battlespire. One of the jokes I've said, I mean, if you want a serious look at Battlespire, I've saved the playthrough on my channel. It is not a serious look. It is me blindly going through Battlespire, which is just, I die constantly trying to figure out these weird 90s style puzzles. But if you want to try Battlespire, even though I will say most people will not get through Battlespire, I don't necessarily say you should suffer through Battlespire either. Playing it a little bit just to get the context and feel for it, I think actually still does have merit. And in a similar vein, yes, Coda might take the series in a direction that I don't want them to go in, and I think it's, in some situations, kind of almost like purposefully obscure in things. I do, in and of itself, even if it was separated, I feel like if Coda was in another thing other than my Elder Scrolls, so to speak, I might actually like Coda. I just don't like the connection to Elder Scrolls already, I think is what I've narrowed it down to my thing. Because I've spent a lot of time reading Coda. We've had episodes on Coda, and it's I think that I don't like it in the establishment of the Elder Scrolls series, not that I don't necessarily like Coda, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. In which case, I may have said this to you already, but I feel like I have, but just for the benefit of the audience as well, if they're trying to process Coda. But consider Coda like this: if the Elder Scrolls is Romeo and Juliet, then Coda is West Side Story.
Yes, yes, we have discussed that because I really enjoyed that. Yeah. Which
I'm going to credit fully to Lady Nerevar. That's her description of it, and it fits perfectly. It's taking the things of the Elder Scrolls and recontextualizing them into something new.
Right. Which in that situation, I agree. I do. It's very amusing, and it's like it almost makes me like them as two separate things, as long as I keep them mentally for myself as two separate things, rather than a 5th to 9th era continuation of the series, because I'm like, oh boy. But at the same time, like I had referenced with like a feel or a vibe type of thing, it's this there's an eerie feeling, and Michael Kirkbride's art is also very at times strange. Sometimes it's actually I think a lot of his art is really, really cool. Some of it is real off the rails, but I actually, for the most part, like a lot of his art style. It's very strange. A lot of it's pretty abrasive. I think it's Mafala is exceedingly abrasive. If you've ever seen, pretty sure it's Mafala.
Yes, it's Mafala.
Yeah,
it's not.
It's Mafala
not safe
that I'm
for
thinking
work.
of.
We can't post it in this one. It's got arms coming out of places.
Correct. Yes. So we will not be posting that. And if you are going to look up what we are talking about, be aware it is very not safe for work. Just be aware of that. But it's a very unique style. Like I said, it's abrasive, but the feel to it is this. It's just this alien world that he's kind of created with Coda. And I definitely think that if that were spun off into its own thing, I would probably be more on board with experiencing whatever the hell that is. So
it is funny you say that, because I remember hearing a story about the pitch meeting for the Elder Scrolls 3. They weren't pitching for the Elder Scrolls. They were pitching for some weird post-apocalyptic sci-fi thing around the moons of Jupiter, where where metal was super scarce. So when they fired cannonballs, they had to go and collect them again, and they all had names and histories as to the battles they'd been in, and you couldn't grow plants, so everyone subsisted off bone meal and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah, which would totally honestly make sense in that context. Like,
there's apparently they got told, yeah, we're not funding that, but set it in Tamriel and you've got a deal.
Yeah,
and that's how the Elder Scrolls 3 sort of happened.
Yeah, and it's weird because again, you get the one thing that again many people have re-quoted to myself with this from Lorecast, but
you've made it if that happens.
Yeah, so
yeah.
I said back when we were discussing that, and I was trying to make a point of saying, like, not everything needs to be for everybody. That doesn't mean you can't enjoy it. But one of the things, I love the uniqueness how Michael Kirkbride writes, but I love it more when it's run through a couple editors to become what the series gets.
Yep. It's not an uncommon perspective.
Yeah, and all it is just, it's editing down these concepts that he has into something a little more palatable, in my opinion. And the thing that I like is, it's weird we ended up on a Coda tangent, but the situation with that is, I feel like that is such there's such a potential setting for something else without necessarily bringing an established thing there, like, into that world. Yeah. But from this is going to get we can move on after this because this is about as weird as it's going to get. From a logic perspective, it kind of makes sense that things would progress past just perpetual, yes, sort of medieval, but it's Magicka based. So I guess we don't need the same type of invention necessarily, but the time period, so to speak, of the Elder Scrolls has been more or less stagnant for a comically long period of time.
Yes.
Honestly, logically, something like Coda kind of makes more sense than the series not progressing forward. If it, you know what I mean? Like,
it's a lovely, lovely take on kind of how do you get to what happens if you have medieval with magic? What sort of a modern do you get out of that?
Right.
And what does that look like? Because there are some kind of bits of modernity that are in there, like part of the section Jubal talks about working for the Tomorrowwind Journal or Tomorrowwind Chronicle, so he's a journalist,
right?
Sort of thing. And there's TV heads that pop up and they talk about pop-up blockers and all this sort of stuff.
And they literally can grab their own speech bubbles in one of the scenes, if I remember correctly, and use it like a weapon.
I think that's more to do with what's going on in that particular story rather than an actual capability of the setting. But yeah,
it is, and it's where that weird fourth wall breaking thing comes from, where it's almost like the self-awareness of the fact that it's a comic. It's like, oh man, this goes in so many weird directions. Where it's like, well, if you've got this magic setting, but then you've advanced to technology, where does magic and technology blend over when you also involve something like Jim? Because, okay, well, did someone become self-aware? Because, I mean, you're dealing with Vivek.
Yes.
It's like, theoretically, is something as ludicrous as that actually a thing that could be plausible in a situation? Like, it gets weird when you start thinking about the fact that you can break the fourth wall is almost part of the series writing itself at points. So it's...
Yes.
Yeah.
Particularly if you look at certain bits of the 36 lessons.
Oh, yeah.
There are explicit bits in that text which are literally, this is a reference to stuff that happened in game development, or this is a reference to quirks in a previous game.
Exactly.
And I think the Lunar Locan is another one. It references the Hollow Crescent theory.
Yes.
In the book, and that was referencing a graphical glitch that they couldn't fix.
Yep.
In the Elder Scrolls 3, where you could see the stars through the moons.
Yes. Yep.
And that sort of thing. And when when the 36 lessons, they talk about about traveling to the spikes at the edge of the map. That's what happened if you went to the edge of the map in Redguard.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I remember that. Yeah. The teeth type of situation, because the graphical error would look like basically spikes. I actually remember that from playing Redguard originally, because I had heard about that. So I went messing around with just. I mean, Redguard is in and of itself its own thing, but at the same time, it's funny because, to your point, it's like these are references the characters being written should not know. Like,
no, absolutely not. And there's just I think because a game that can be that sort of self-aware as well, you've got that brings in other aspects to it, like the levitation act in the Elder Scrolls 4 and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I always love that, because it's like, crap, we just can't have people levitating over these walls. We need to instance off the cities so that we can separate the load screens. It's like, well, in Morrowind, you could just fly in and out of places because that's just how it was. So it's like, okay, we need a reason why you can no longer do that. So.
Yeah, it's great that they try that. It's not just you don't get levitation spells anymore. Yeah, and the whole black white soul gem thing in ESO and the schools of magic and all those. There's more of those in ESO than there is anywhere else. And
for sure,
it's fascinating to see them. A large part of ESO's lore, which is part of what I like about ESO specifically, is that they're trying to fix continuity errors.
They really are, which is very entertaining, because between, like you said, fixing things that it's like, logistically this doesn't make sense. How can we find a way to make this make sense? And the other thing that I ultimate respect to the people on the writing team, and also Lehman Tuttle as well as Lawrence Schick, the former lore master. One of the things that I love about the two of them, because they seem, at least from my understanding as a lore master, other than being writers for the series, it seems like a lot of that needs to be like fact checker. And how do you make sure that these things aren't nonsensical gibberish that are going to end up making people go crazy when the next Elder Scrolls game comes out. And some of their you can tell it's gotta be for their own interests, because again, I've only ever pulled this once. I actually don't know anyone who has ever pulled one of these things, or they did and they thought it was garbage and didn't pay attention to it, so they threw it out. My one favorite thing specifically was when I pickpocketed an item that was a star tooth, and it's not elaborately explained. It's just like it's a small tooth, and it's emanating a hollow white light, and it's got some degree of emanating power, and that is a callback to the main quest item from Elder Scrolls Travel Shadow Key. Those are what you collect. You need to collect the star teeth, and I'm like, so this is an incredibly rare pickpocketable item that's worth only 1,000 gold back at this time period where, again, you have to go finding them in Shadow Key. So, like, assumedly they would be roaming, lost about in the world prior to. And just some random slob has it in their pocket that you rolled properly to get. And they made a reference to it just because it's in the series. Like, just to acknowledge the fact that it's like, we know the other games exist no matter how esoteric some of those other games are.
Yeah, no, they do a fantastic job of kind of tying everything up and just referencing everything. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful to watch, and I really like Antiquities for that, actually. Just those little nuggets of additional context here and there.
Love Antiquities system.
They're not big pieces, but they're still enough to kind of, so that's the way it is.
I always say that they're like a perfect flavor text to kind of like, this lore is still here. Here's a little more to it. Like, it makes it feel a little more real. Here's like, this mage found this, and here's their interpretation. I really like that. Yeah. So I guess since we're on ESO, and we've already been going for an hour and a half because that's how we do things.
Oh, yeah.
why don't you, since this will be your first episode on Tales, what have you been up to, Aramithius? I guess theoretically, I mean, you've got some stuff typed. What have you been up to since you started playing the series? No, whatever you want to just toss out of interest that you've done, that you'd like to just kind of regale us with.
Well, recently I've just been spending all of my time in Fargrave. Anytime I can spare. It is just a beautiful, beautiful place. I love the feel of it. I love the kind of the liminal space of it.
Yes.
I love the kind of the reason that it exists in world.
Yep.
I love the way it looks. I am an absolute sucker for that kind of gantry layered design in whatever context.
Mm-hmm. I second that. It's
really well.
It's so good. It's such an awesome addition to the series. And it's one of the things that I had mentioned before. Actually, I don't know if you have more context to this or if there's a connection or if I'm just like making this based on an artistic connection. But the immediate thing that I saw when I was walking around Fargrave and just the feel it had was the load screen into the Maelstrom Arena. And you have that weird plane of just, it's almost like this just desolation of like this weird space between spaces. If you look at that load screen and it's got like the Maelstrom Arena itself, and then there's like the cloudy like cityness off in the distance, immediately I'm like, okay, so we reached the city. Like this is the Fargrave feel. Like it carries such a similar feel to it. And I don't know if that was actually intentionally done or not, but it's just like, I love the way that it has, because the Maelstrom Arena itself, besides the physical arena run by the Dremora, that's just kind of like a torture test because Finn likes to punish us. The design of the area around the Maelstrom Arena gives me such a similar feeling to Fargrave, which I really liked because I always kind of wished we had more to that type of, I don't know, aesthetic, so to speak.
The closest I can sort of come to is that if I'm wildly speculating here, but Fargrave is either a dead demi-prince or a dead Daedral Lord, or so the theory goes.
That.
Yeah. So I'm thinking if we're talking, the structure of Oblivion is a nightmare. It literally makes no sense. But if we are seeing Fargrave from the Maelstrom Arena, then we can potentially say that this dead entity that's making Fargrave is either also aligned to Boethia and is therefore or was aligned to Boethia and therefore part of Boethia's territory, as Farnuit Hen's stuff is for Maelstrom, or Farnuit Hen is more neutral than he's letting on. And so is part of the neutral zone or a neutral zone. I'm basically saying that if they are that close in proximity, then it feels like there could be some ideological connection there, basically, because location and ideology are much more closely linked in Oblivion than they are Mundus. That's my from the hip thought.
Yeah, all right.
I can't give you any specifics.
Yeah, no, I was just interested. It's just that it's one of those things. It's been the first impression I've gotten since being there, and I love it. So I've been roaming around in it a whole bunch. That's why I was just curious on your take from any of that. But, all right, yeah.
No, yeah, it just reminds me of so much of various other things that, most particularly Wujian in the Exalted setting. Some of the artwork for that, it just looks so much like Fargrave, and I love it. But that's a whole other setting that I could also go for another 2 hours ranting about. But yeah. Apart from that, most of the stuff I've been doing, most of the stuff I do on ESO at all is with the Law Seekers Guild. I'm one of the officers for the PCEU chapter for them. I run events on Tuesday nights with them from 8 GMT, which are basically but at the moment they are tours of an area and going through the side quests, and discussing the lore of whatever side quests. We've recently been through Ooze or Owls, or however they pronounce it in game. I pronounce it Ooze because it makes the connection to the book so much better. But that particular portion of Malabal Tor, and what that means for the origins of the Bosmer. We ran around Bleak Rock Isle recently, and just where does that fit in with the politics of Skyrim and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of the Tuesday nights. During the Undaunted event, which I didn't actually do a whole heap of, I know that they were running through dungeons, and that's kind of one of the staples for the Lore Seekers at any time, is just if you want a slow dungeon run, going through, experiencing the story, discussing things as you go, then that's what we do. I think probably the slowest dungeon that we've taken is, I think, Crypt of Hearts 1 took us close to 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Because we're going through, listening to all the dialogue, going through all the bookcases.
There's so much like reading in that place. I haven't gone through it that long, but back when I was still very new to the game, that place I remember exploring around a lot because it was so involved.
Yeah, because there's so much story in the place, and then there's all of the stuff you find in the shelves.
Right.
But yeah, that and one other thing that we've started doing, because one of our members is just a complete alcoholic, so he's always got a ridiculously low level character to hand. Is doing baby dungeons.
Okay.
So we've taken we've started just. Every so often, a bunch of us will get together and take a level 4, a level 16, and a level 20, and one CP character into City of Ash 2.
Okay.
And that will take multiple hours again. But
that place takes a long time, even if you're not going through for the lore.
Well, it's not necessarily that we're going through for the lore at that point. It's because the characters are so low level. It will take us about half an hour to get through
for sure
one of the bosses.
Yep.
But not that we're dying all the time, but
it's just a slog through that place.
Because our DPS is not that high, and that's just really fun. It totally changes up the pacing of what you're doing. I mean, because usually you just kind of you just blast through dungeons, and just, okay, this is kind of done in about 10 minutes, even 5 minutes, if you're just going through with a bunch of people who just don't stop for anything.
Right.
But it's kind of having the experience of those base game dungeons being a challenge again has been really refreshing.
Nice.
It's just something I would recommend to anyone.
Yeah, and to your point, an underrated aspect of this game, because again, a lot of times on the show specifically, we talk about, I got the perfector run in this. We did the speed run, the hard mode, and the no death, all of this. Yeah, okay, that's great and whatnot, but it's not usually. The other thing is, when new dungeons drop, I tend to like to run them completely clueless on stream on vet hard mode so that we get our teeth kicked in for everybody's entertainment.
Yep.
But what I generally don't, I never stream them for my own selfish reasons of I'm very bad at multitasking, and if I'm streaming, it's because I want to hang out with people while I'm doing whatever I'm doing. But when I want to get story, I do it generally by myself or in a group of like-minded individuals who also want to do that. And I will always go back through these things so that I can get the stories that I missed when doing them initially. Sometimes I don't even do the quest. People have pointed that out. I won't even do the quest on the initial run. They're like, you didn't grab the quest. I was like, yeah, I don't need that. It's fine. I'm going back to it. Because so many of these, going back originally, they've become more involved, obviously. But the stories to a lot of these dungeons and trials as well, the Maw of Lorcage specifically is one of my all-time favorites. The stories to them are actually more than just, go kill the thing. Like there's a lot to a lot of these. And with the all-encompassing season format that they've changed to the last couple of years, the dungeons now really tie into the main story. Like you get a lot more out of the full chapter slash fourth quarter DLC by experiencing the dungeons. Like, it fills in that extra for you. So to kind of second that, I can't recommend going through even on normal with a couple friends or two friends and your companions, however you want to do it, and listen to the story, because if you enjoy the stories, at least, it totally helps add to it. They're definitely worth experiencing.
Yeah, I would absolutely love it if they would put in a story mode where you could just rerun all of the dialogue, even if you've done the quest.
Right, yeah.
It would just make life so much more fun.
Yeah, just skip having trash ads poking at you while you're trying to read something or talk to somebody or whatever the case.
Well, not necessarily even that, just the ability to have that initial cycle through the dialogue again.
Yeah.
Just so you can have the story. I mean, Crypt of Hearts is a great example of that almost kind of working anyway, because you can go through that and you have the flashbacks and the dialogue with Arunway as part of the course, apart from, I think, the initial one, and you can get that, I think, with but as an example, but I think an example of the worst of that is Direfrost, where if you're not on the quest, then you don't go back to the central pyre and beat everyone up.
You literally don't even do the middle boss fight. Like, it's removed from the dungeon after your first playthrough. It's very strange. And it kind of brings me to something that's I've long wondered why. Maybe there might be a technical reason for it that I just don't know. Quests for trials are repeatable. You can do them as many times as you want. Dungeons are not. Know. You cannot repeat the dungeon story, but you generally you get a weekly coffer actually from doing the story in a trial again, and then you get a pittance worth of cash and experience if you just do it. You can do it as many times as you want, even in the same day. So a lot of times when you're farming like a perfecta like or something, you can keep doing it. And it's just like, oh yeah, here's some golden experience because you completed the quest and you turned it in. And once a week, you're given like a coffer of like, here's some supplies. You get that. And I've never quite understood the reasoning why dungeons can't be done like that. You get one shot at doing your dungeon per character, whereas trials are a repeatable event. It's something I've never quite understood why.
Yeah, my first thought was, is it something economic wise? But then again, that one coffer, that one container of unidentified stuff that you get at the end is nothing in comparison to all of the stuff that you rack up during the dungeon.
Way. Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that's not it.
My only thought was maybe the skill point allocation. I wonder if, because when you do a dungeon the first time, you get that skill point upon completion. Yeah. I wonder if it's more complicated than it seems to let you pull that physic away from the quest tether itself. Do you get a skill point for completing a trial? So it's kind of funny. I've been trying to think of that. I don't believe so, actually, because when we first went through for this last chapter, I don't believe you get a skill point from completing a trial the first time. So I'm wondering if maybe that relates to that. I'm honestly not entirely sure, but it's something I've just always thought was weird because they're both designed to be repeatable. And since the story is not an oversight of this game, you'd think you'd want to give people as much access to the story during their repeatable thing if they want it.
Yeah, that just made sense to me. But yeah, the skill point could be a reason for that. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, not too sure.
But yeah, apart from that, just stuff with the Law Seekers Guild is as and when I can. One of the things that we do is just a monthly turn up and chat about a particular law topic on a Sunday, which is which is just a fantastic barrel of fun. I set the topic and we go. We've got Dragon Breaks this Sunday, and I can't remember what we've got after that. I think someone was our trials lead had posted up a picture of or a link to the genealogy of Myr, so we might go through that.
Oh, okay.
But we'll see. But yeah, it's just basically everyone turn up in voice chat and do stuff. Sometimes we'll go fishing while we do it. Other times people are doing stuff, so it's just whatever we do in chat stuff while stuff goes on. If there's a particular, like we're talking about the history of a particular place, I'll go fishing in that place.
Yeah.
But if it's something like Dragon Breaks, that's not something you can really do.
No, not really.
No, but yeah, it's the voice element is the part of that. That's kind of the key thing. We just turn up and chat lore because it's the lore seekers.
I was going to say, you're perpetually seeking lore. That's the plan. That's the plan. Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
No, that's actually really cool. And honestly, like, it's funny. When going for Master Wrangle originally, that was kind of our thing. We would just kind of sit around and shoot the shit while fishing, and it's like. Sometimes we would sit there and be like, wait, have we finished? And we'll look at a region, we're like, oh, we've been done for like God knows how long. Like we'll have multiple of the fish. Like we were not paying any attention to what we were doing. It is one of my favorite passive activities in game that can actually, other than if you're, not an achievement hunter, the perfect row market is still valuable. So as a side effect, skinning all the non-trophy fish can net you a decent amount of cash, actually, as well. So it's kind of like a really good form of passive income if you want.
Yeah. What do you even use Perfect Row for? I've kept all of mine. I've got a bundle of what must
I know
be
prices
hundreds,
definitely vary from PC to, one between North America and EU, and then between console and PC, because I'm constantly blown away looking at PC prices. I'm like, oh my God. Like, but Perfect Row, the most well-known thing that Perfect Row tends to be is Perfect Row is used in Psijic Ambrosia types, which is an experience booster. But there's also some really high-end foods that you will use for trials or arenas on certain builds, and Perfect Row is one of the ingredients to them. So that's another use for them. They tend to, I don't know what the prices are on PC. I assume it's nonsense because that's all I ever see from PC. But I know on console, which is generally cheaper, it's between like 7 and 10K for a Perfect Row. So
terrible.
No. So when you end up skinning a bunch of fish, you end up with a pile of these things. You can very quickly turn it around if you're not going to use them on yourself, and turn it into a tidy little profit. So.
Yeah, I might do that, but then again, I just wind up with a mound of gold then, and I don't really know what to do with it.
That's a different situation. Also, wow, Kika confirmed my horror. So I said between 7 and 10 on console. Apparently on PC EU, it's around 50K for one of them. So,
I really should finish my Cold Harbor Surreal estate. That'll give me the perfect wad of cash to go out and buy whatever furniture I need to.
Wow, that is good Lord! My heart goes out to you all on PC. I'm sure this is all lessened of a blow with your add-ons that do your writs for you, but nonetheless, holy crap! I can't get over the price differential. It still constantly blows my mind. But
yeah.
So
that's the thing. That's Kiku's pointed out that Kiku's pointed out that prices go up during double XP events. Speaking of which, do we have a date for the New Life Festival yet? So
not that I saw when I was looking through all the announcements. It's been more than strongly hinted at. Everybody knows we're getting New Life Festival, as well as with the Crown Store update, which I never go into. I mean, you can just go on the store and look up all the stuff coming to the Crown Store. But the Frostcaster style returns during the actual New Life Festival. Frostcaster essentially being a fancy way of saying Stallroom, essentially, because it's it's more or less the Stallroom style from Skyrim. But that's returning to the store, which always kind of ushers in shortly thereafter the New Life Festival. And New Life lasts for quite a while. So I'm assuming it's got to be shot in the dark. You know who would probably know, just because at this point he is the ultimate calendarmancer, is Benevolent Bodhi. But I would guess we got probably like 2 weeks maybe, and then we'll probably find out in about a week or two, and then it'll kick off, because usually I give us a couple days lead up. And it kicks off.
That's fair enough.
Yeah. Anything else of note from you?
Not at the moment.
All right.
No, I don't think so. That's been pretty much about it. My playtime has been cut down a little bit lately because of life.
Yeah.
But no.
Oh,
yeah,
I hear that.
yeah. But no, apart from that, I'm always famously behind on everything. It felt so strange this past few months. Like, I'm doing the Deadlands prologue just before Deadlands comes out, not 3 months after the content's dropped and everyone's talked about it. What's going on?
That's pretty funny.
But
I definitely hear that because that's been my thing. It's like I managed to squeeze in some. I kind of like, my wife is very supportive of letting me squeeze in like designated time that she's like, yeah, okay, go be a nerd and unwind for like a couple hours. And that's usually where I've got like, all right, I'm going to do whatever it is I'm going to do.
Do you need to get her on board? Mine plays with me.
Oh yeah, no. To be fair, she has played before, and she's played different games. Several of my friends in chat can attest to the fact that she's briefly tried to play Destiny. She'll play Grand Theft Auto. She's got an N64, but past that time period, she's kind of like, whatever. She'll play party games and stuff like that. Fair enough. We at one point, I had to go grab something to drink or eat or go to the bathroom or something like that. So she took the controller during a session of PlanetSide 2, which is like an MMO shooter type thing, similar in vein to Battlefield style-wise of big catastrophic battles. And everybody on my team was taking off in the ship, and she saw the first thing that moved and started shooting it. They panicked, even though they were on our team. It has friendly fire, and they were trying to figure out who was shooting them. And while doing so, clipped a tree, crashed into the ground, and she got like a 9-person team kill. So I came back to like negative 1,000 points. And she's like, I got that big ship. I was like, those were all of my friends. She's like, oh, well, bye. And she just gave me the controller back.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So no. It's not like she won't join in. It's just generally she if they were to ever make this into a Netflix series, I feel like that would be the entry, because we originally years and years ago bonded over Game of Thrones before it became a dumpster fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And same thing, we've actually been enjoying for what there is of it. That Wheel of Time is kind of interesting. Same thing. We watched The Witcher, excited for that. So she has an interest in that style of stuff, but the gaming aspect just isn't her draw nearly as much.
Fair enough.
So, yeah.
No. Whereas mine will hop on at any given opportunity and is a regular on the battlegrounds and all sorts, and has actually wound up bringing people into the guild through how nice she is in Battlegrounds.
That's great.
Which is just, yes.
Well, probably because that's a shocking change of pace from the usual whispers you get in Battlegrounds.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just kind of, oh, you're nice. Can I group with you and run some more? And rather than getting shouted at.
I would like to not be degraded in between our matches.
Yeah, but that's her jam. Running around with an Argonian with as big an axe as she can wield, which is literally called Runs with Axes. And just seeing what she can do in Battlegrounds. She's not necessarily good at it, but she really enjoys them.
Well, I constantly like go in. So there you go. Perfect way of saying, like, going into what I did, I constantly joke that I'm actually not as good as some people seem to politely think I am. I'm more just dedicated to, I don't let copious failure prevent me from continuing to do something until I eventually just succeed at it. We didn't fail all that much this week, which was a refreshing change of pace after True Genius last week, where we went into the new dungeon, Red Petal Bastion, and we actually managed to do the perfecta in there with only 5 tries, which some people have mentioned, like, oh yeah, that was one of the easier ones. It was definitely a little shorter. Shout out to my team as always for helping us get the Silver Rose title for doing that. One of the achievements for doing the speedrun in there is actually, I love funny achievement names, and that one was called World's Shortest Siege, which I thought was pretty funny. And the thing about that place is it is very manageable. And even though it didn't take us too many tries, one thing about that dungeon, which you don't need to do it on hard mode to know this, the end of that final fight is so chaotic. There are so many things. Like, there are not a lot of new mechanics, but Finn and the dungeon team, because I know he's part of the team that, you know, obviously designs these encounters, put in so many different things you need to keep track of at the same time.
Yes.
So once we got to about 10%, realized we hadn't died, we were definitely under time, and we were doing the hard mode, it started to click, and it was like, oh my god, we're really close.
Gonna do this.
But there's
We're gonna do this.
ice spikes up, all the mirror images swinging around. The mages are coming in from the side that need to be interrupted because then they'll heal the boss, which we won't be at 10% anymore if that's the case. He's calling in walls from the side. There are clan fears and ogrims popping up from the other sides, running into the arena to throw stuff at us. And on top of all of that chaos, you have the effect. We did the side bonuses because I always say work smarter, not harder. You can obviously choose to not get the buffs from the secrets in these dungeons that they've creatively added to them. But if you're quick enough, you can get the buffs and still make the speedrun time. You just need to plan out your routes usually. And that's what we like to do. We always like to plan out, can we do this and get all the buffs? We'll, if we feel like trying to flex, which I generally don't care about, we can try to do it without afterwards and see if we're able to. But it's like, I like the idea of like, give me whatever advantage I can get and we'll make the most of it. One of the advantages and one of the effects is very cool in this. When you block with the second secret boss, you get that fire beam thing that comes out, which is an awesome,
beautiful.
It's so cool looking if you haven't already seen it. But the problem with that is, we have 4 flame beams going off amongst all that chaos as well, which kind of obscures incoming damage. Because you're like, oh, is that their fire? Is that my fire? Is somebody using a fire? So there's just more crap on the screen that's distracting you from what you're supposed to be paying attention to. But we did manage to get it at the very end amidst much chaos. So I was very pleased about that. The only other thing which we've gotten close to, and it is super not my role, my group has moved on after we got our Immortal Redeemer to planning to do Godslayer, which is the title that I actually want the most other than my Emperorship, which I got. However, with the holidays and everything like that, they're probably going to carry on without me. However, because this group is super awesome, they wanted to make sure, they were like, well, you got to at least run some Extinguisher of Flames with us. You get some stuff for your sticker book, get the clear on your character, because I've actually had never done all the hard modes of Sunspire. And what they did, because if I'm going to be stepping back and we already have 2 tanks, this group started with a need for 3 tanks since we were in Cloud Rest where you require 3 tanks. It's weird that this is group. We're not a guild. It's just a group of us. And we've just kind of progressed.
We've got the same thing.
Yeah. Yep. So 3 tanks isn't required. So as a DK and meta side, patch wise, Dragon Knights are hitting very hard this patch. I am not very adept at being a DPS, but I'm giving it a shot in here. And, it's been pretty fun so far on a DK. I'm the buff DK as well, so one of my benefits is, yes, I do as much as I can do, but I need to make sure that all of the buffs and debuffs are applied so that the rest of the people who are much more adept at damage can do better damage as a result. So I get to sit into the pile, and one of the things that is super neat is, since I generally always tank these things, I kind of only know that perspective. I basically got to learn this thing on Vet from a DPS perspective, which was surprisingly interesting because I've never really done a trial on Vet hard mode through one of these. It's pretty fun, and one thing that is super not what I'm used to is when I die, I'm a DPS. I'm not one of the people controlling the tempo of the fight as a tank. I don't control the positioning. If I die, people don't care that much. And that is a refreshing change of pace. Because usually if I die, everybody's like, cool, we just wiped, way to screw up. So I've enjoyed that as a little bit of difference. Man, the hard modes in that thing are utter chaos, especially the Ice Dragon. My lord, there's just so much happening.
I've barely tried hard modes, but I remember Art kind of dragging me through. I think it was was it Scale Caller? But it was either Scale Caller or Fang Lair. And as a DPS, and just kind of I main a tank when I do group content.
Sure.
And it was saying that it's kind of like, okay, so I can Ark was like, yeah, I can tell all of the bad habits that you've got as a tank playing as a DPS.
Oh yeah.
It's just
you carry it with you. Like and it's a very different type of thing where I do a lot of stuff actually on Guaranir, which that character has evolved well beyond a joke into I've actually started to go through and complete every vet dungeon on him now. Yep. But I say that being a Templar, I look much more adept than I actually am. A Mage DK, you have all sorts of different timing on your rotations and everything like that. But it's weird because being a tank is so reactionary and position-based, whereas being a DPS, it's habit of rotation and don't do anything just overtly stupid, which is really a different play style at first. And it's it feels weird to adjust to.
Yeah, I kind of see tank as kind of like a lazy attention seeker. It's like, right, you are coming to where I say you're going. Yes. And right now I don't do anything else. Okay, I block. Like now I spin the buffs round, and now I need to block taunt again. And it's a really it's quite a basic thing that doesn't change a whole heap, unless there are tank specific mechanics like portals or whatever.
Sure.
But you be a DPS like that, particularly with the habit of staying in one place, and no.
Yeah, exactly. Other than that, the other thing, speaking of Fargrave, I've been doing the daily repeatables off to the side in order to try to collect the motif in there. And my RNG is absolutely abysmal.
A change there then.
Yeah, no, it somehow might have actually gotten worse this time because usually we share them in a group so that we can consistently I've got them. I've got a different set. Let me share those with the group. So I'm sitting at, I believe I'm on, because you do more days than physically days. So you can do like 2 in a day and it counts as 2, do 3, whatever. I believe I'm on 20 or 21 of each. Now you can only get the motif from 1, I found out.
Right. Which
is fine, whatever. I have 2 pages out of 21 dailies.
Ow!
So I feel like this is just going to devolve into me breaking open my wallet and buying those from people in Zone who have better RNG or don't care about collecting them all, because not been good. And the other motif, which you can get, I believe it's called Ancestral Daedric, which is been this new ancestral style that they've been putting into the game with each of these recent expansions, where by collecting the treasure maps from the region, you can then do the treasure map, which might pop an antiquity lead for one of the pages.
Right.
Which is, as I've said, RNG slathered with a second layer of RNG. It's why the maps end up being hysterically expensive, because if you get a motif, it is worth a small, and sometimes not even small, it's worth a fortune, because they're so rare. So I've actually gotten a couple of the Deadlands maps, and I was like, okay, awesome, I'll figure these out. And I did them, and I got 0 leads. So when looking back at that, I was just like, that was like $50,000 in maps that I just threw in this trash, essentially, because I didn't get my leads out of many ways. And I was browsing around at some of the prices, and one of my guildmates actually had mentioned, I was like, oh, I just finished mine. And I was like, you finished the whole Ancestral Daedric? He was like, yeah, I learned my lesson from Blackwood. as in I'm only buying them. I don't care about actually. Yeah. I was like, oh, how much did all of the pages cost you total for yours? And he told me 32 million on console, which I would assume in relation to PC prices is somewhere in the price of $100 billion or something like that.
Yeah, it'll be nuts.
Yeah, so yikes. I'm still trying to actually get those things. It has not been good. RNG fails all around.
This is why I'm not a completionist. I came to this thing as an Elder Scrolls player rather than an MMO player, so I don't have those habits. But right. I listened to your stories, and I'm just so thankful.
Well, and it's
I'm
weird
not a completionist,
because in the same regard, I absolutely, much like you, came as an Elder Scrolls fan, but my problem is I have that weird completion bug with everything I do where I'm like, well, I didn't get everything out of it unless I really got everything out of it, which is a bad thing to have in an MMO, I've learned, because this is the only MMO I play. And I'm like, good God, it never stops. So
they're basically they're kind of your kryptonite quicksand mix.
Absolutely.
Kind of,
I get sucked into trying to unlock more and more of these, where it's like, a lot of people talk about like, oh, I'm trying to collect all cosmetics. All of that stuff I bulldoze out of the way for the next thing to physically do to unlock in my journal. So I do like a challenge. But man, do I not like a challenge when it relates to just random chance. I feel like this is just going to be a money thing later on where it's like, well, it looks like I just practice my dungeons to get my achievements that way and then use all the funds that I earn from those to then buy the things that I couldn't naturally earn.
Yeah, I was going to say at this point, it's kind of a question of find the thing that gets gold and you enjoy doing.
Right.
And just do lots of that. Hopefully not until you stop enjoying it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And luckily I've never reached that phase, but it's funny because like a lot of the times when people ask me like, how the hell do you have so much gold? And I don't have an outrageous amount, but I have a decent amount of gold at my disposal usually. And it's from, like I say, I won't say that I'm exceptionally good. I will say that I'm exceptionally dedicated oftentimes, where for our Immortal Redeemer run, for example, where we needed to get Vet Asylum Sanctorum +2 done within 15 minutes, nobody can die, like a lot happening in that. And my guild or my group was very patient as both myself and the main tank were not super experienced in there. So it takes a lot of reps to get everything down. And that's what most of this stuff is. Yes, skill relates to it, but a lot of it is just practice if you're going to do these things. And when practicing for something like that, failure happens quite frequently. But if you can recover, and the best way to get better at something is to recover and carry on and clear it, when you're clearing a trial that the time trial is 15 minutes long, my group is clearing it between 6.5 and 9 minutes. We're getting 10,000 plunder gold, all the random crap out of there, which isn't anything substantial. You turn in the quest for like $700, and then you get all the materials you get. Breaking down the jewelry, since you're doing +2, you're getting gold jewelry drops. So you're getting chromium. So in 1 1.5 to 2 hour session you run in a night, you get 9 clears. Well, that's 90,000 plunder. And then say you get 50% of the jewelry. So that, right, okay, well, that's still 3-4 plates, or I'm sorry, the dust. And it's like all of that adds up. So I make my money practice and failing at things to get my perfectas done, and then use the money that I made during that to then buy the inability to fail anymore with my RNG. So it's at least it's a fun cycle that I find myself.
It works.
In. Yeah,
it
does.
works. Yeah, and I think your lack of ESO Plus might actually help you there.
It does. I really need to manage my inventory because I cannot ignore it.
Yeah. So the instant you break anything down, it all goes on Guild Traders rather than being bunged away somewhere to be forgotten about.
Yeah, I cannot ignore that stuff, or my inventory is quickly I'm on fire, and that's the end of my adventures. As I was crushed by my garbage.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah,
and then go ahead.
I was going to say, and then that's the perfect example of that. I think it was Winston Churchill maxim of success is the key to success is the ability to go from failure to failure without lack of enthusiasm.
Yeah, actually,
without loss of enthusiasm.
Right, and that's that. Honestly, that is a really good way of describing how I play ESO.
Sounds about right.
And then the only other thing that I figure that I want to shout out as it's actually where I came from prior to streaming over here was this afternoon. I had the privilege of learning to play Dungeons and Dragons in an Elder Scrolls setting. I don't really know much of anything about about Dungeons and Dragons, really. I know the concept of it, and I know some vagaries and kind of some of the stuff I've needed to learn to understand some of the old Elder Scrolls games. But it's really never been, it's not really my thing. However, Ophelia from the Bethesda EU team was running this awesome charity event, which she was doing for the Save the Children campaign, an ESO-themed one-off campaign where she did not specifically want people who were experienced only to be doing this, which was kind of neat. And as a result, I had mentioned that we were going to be doing this before, and as a result, we did actually kick this thing off. So it was myself who, I'm not sure if I was the least experienced. I think I might have been. Demios Thea, Hyperpixie, and also Rich Lambert. It was the group of us at the behest of our DM, Ophelia, bringing us into a short little adventure in which money would be raised for the cause while we attempted to entertain people. And as a quick synopsis to it, because it was a lot of fun, I'm glad to see Cobra said in chat that it was entertaining to watch. People seemed like they enjoyed it, which I'm glad, because I really had no context going in if I was really doing anything even remotely correctly. But we got to design our characters in advance with the help of Ophelia. So Rich was a very mead-fueled orc.
Yep.
Yep. And Demios was a Khajiit who attempted to be a pacifist, which lasted all of a single round of combat, at which point she somehow managed to convince a mud crab of some degree of existential dread through a spell that it imploded on itself and literally popped like a grape, which was... It was basically a spell that did not go as intended, I'm guessing, and then it just spiraled from there.
I'm just trying to. I'm sure that whoever's written the 5th edition conversion to the Elder Scrolls will not have written that. There's a really obscure book in the Four Suitors of Benita who's literally like, I can prove you don't exist. Writes out the mathematical proof something doesn't exist. Hands it to him. He disappears.
And that was it started from her trying to befriend the mud crab. The problem was it's a mud crab, so the barrier of understanding was not there, which frustrated her. So she used a different thing to mess with the mud crab, causing it to basically implode.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pixie was a Bosmer, which is quite fitting, as Pixie is basically the size of a Bosmer, and she was an extreme kleptomaniac. So if it wasn't nailed down, it basically was going with Pixie. And then I decided, since I didn't really have a great understanding of what I was doing, I wanted to play something slightly different than like, okay, people expect me to go in and, I'm gonna Nord collection everything my way through it, and I decided to not do that. So I attempted to go with more of a mage style thing, which I guess maybe D&D forms itself around you, as this is my first experience. But I was a Dwemer automaton that was reanimated. We were in the Hrothgar region, so I was actually reanimated by a mage, and as a side effect, I have poor control over my recently reanimated functionality, and I accidentally killed my resurrector. But on his body found a part of a map and wandered to a nearby inn. And in the inn, that's where we all form our party. At which point,
of course,
I went with the fact that everything would be of the flat, logical conclusion of how can this Dwemer creation get to its end result. So that was basically my attempt at RPing. So everything that I thought would logically get me to the location of what I needed the fastest was the approach I took, including taking mead literally from the bar, not paying for it, stealing one of the maps from out of one of the other characters' hands to basically determine where we were supposed to go. Since I was this horrifying metal monstrosity, people tended to just kind of go along with it because I seemed rather unstable. We got to this place. We met this mage who, right out the gate, it was a very interesting situation of this is clearly a setup. And we go into the cave. He's leading us along with promises of treasure. And what I want to do is just, without doing this, you can go to Ophelia's channel if you want to watch the VOD. Also, you can still donate to the charity if you would like. But if you want the full recap, it's about 3 hours long. I would suggest going there. These the only things I want to bring up are the couple rather bizarre things that I was encountered in. We mentioned the crab battle, with making one of the crabs have an existential crisis. Rich was busy smashing them. I vaporized one. This started because of Pixie's rampant kleptomania, where there was a diamond on a pedestal, which her first reaction was to immediately try to steal, which opened a portal, which we didn't actually ever get to the point of understanding the reasoning behind said portal because of what ensued. But mud crabs just started tumbling out of this portal and very gently snipping at us, which we took as massive hostility and started fighting back the mud crabs, while the mage was freaking out that basically we were going to drown in these things because they weren't going to stop coming and it was going to keep getting worse. But Pixie
How could you drown?
I think that it was more of a smothering effect of us eventually being smushed into this, where Pixie decided that it was more advantageous to just keep it and we could pretend the mud crab situation wasn't happening. Tried to make a break for it, at which point I caught her because I'm much larger than a Bosmer. And I, through a series of, I learned afterwards, rather outrageous RNG in my favor, pulled off some rather ridiculous things because we tried to convince her that it was in the best interest of everybody's lifespan to place the crystal back on. She was hearing none of it. So I placed Pixie with the crystal on the platform.
Well, it works, clearly.
It did work. We slayed many a mud crab after a lot of fumbling about. She accepted that, especially since none of us had protest against her grabbing it on the way out once we found what we were looking for, and we said she could deal with the mud crabs as she saw fit afterwards. We continued off into the thing, and while we were making it through the cave, one of the things that I was quite adamant about, because my end result was I wanted to see what was held within this cave, but I did not, however, see that this was a safe situation. However, analyzing the threat as I tried to do, I figured how much damage could this old man do? Because he's an old man. Like, even if he's a mage, there's only so much he'll be functionally able to do to us.
There speaks the D&D novice.
Yes, yeah. And that's what I was told. However, in my extreme paranoia, I guess, in-game or out-of-game, me trying to understand in-game, I refused to let the mage literally out of my grasp. So the whole time I was holding the mage, just, so that he could move around. He was directing us to where we needed to go. But he couldn't make a break for it. He couldn't be doing anything too sketchy because I had one of my steely fists on him. And as we make it into the treasure room, which oddly, it's like, well, this guy really does seem to just be fessing up to like, yeah, I've got a whole bunch of treasure in here. You can have it. That's not what I'm here for. I just need to get back to my lab. Which
something up there.
Exactly. Which has bullshit written all over it, but we were along for it. Pixie, seeing the gold, goes haywire and immediately starts loading up her pockets like they're going out of style. And in the center of the room, there is a tomb to which we're trying to figure out how to get inside. Rich's vested interest in, he was looking for a new axe of some type, so he was like, oh, well, maybe there'd be something inside. Demia was just kind of horrified at all of that had happened, but was along for the ride because it's like, well, this could end up being beneficial to me in the end. And once we saw the gold, she was a little more on board there because she could help her trading caravan if she could bring back a decent amount of currency. Yeah. And I again, it's one of those things where I guess hindsight is always entertaining to see why you choose what you do. The mage, old man, said that if he could get a better look at the tomb, he'd probably be able to crack it open so we could go inside, get what we need, get our riches so that we feel that we're paid off, and he can go back to his work in the cave. I was all for it because, again, I was like, well, I'm curious what's in there. So in a shift, I asked if I was allowed to switch my hand position from resting my hand on the mage's shoulder to resting it on the back of the mage's neck, because I wanted him to be able to reach around, do whatever he needed to see if he could crack open the thing, but I still didn't want him out of my grasp, so to speak. And as he works, he grabs the hilt of the sword that's on the top of the tomb itself and slides it out, which releases the top. And Ophelia tells me at this point that I feel a form of heat rising through like my mechanical, like through my arm. I'm aware that the temperature is rising. And apparently the mage starts to darken in shadow, like it's starting to change, and immediately has interest in it, to which I said, can I break his neck now? To which she said, yeah, I mean, theoretically, you're holding him by the neck. And Rich made the joke of, yeah, all you need to roll is a perfect 20, to which I did. And I broke his neck, threw him against the wall now that he was just a dead husk, took the sword scabbard for myself. Everyone looted the cave. The impending boss fight was immediately done because I killed him. Which we did not find out till afterwards that was supposed to be a boss fight.
All of that prep work. As someone who runs games more often than playing with them, I feel Ophelia's pain there.
So we decide we're going to leave the cave. Pixie, of course, grabs the stupid diamond on the way out, in which she makes it out while being riddled with mud crab pinches because she's so weighed down from all the gold.
Can't outrun them,
But we managed to get out of the cave with apparently a much more expedited happy ending than was planned because what we were supposed to get from the experience with the mage was ended abruptly when I broke the mage's neck. So I feel that my chaotic neutrality really went well in my first Dungeons & Dragons experience, and I had a lot of fun with it. So
yes.
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that sounds absolutely like chaotic neutral. That's an absolute fit for. And you managed to rob the group of all pathos of the ending. Well, good for you.
I do my best.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And it was for a great cause. So that's always something that's a big selling point for me, is when, you can do some good with something that we love for somebody who needs it. So...
Yes. No, it's all good. And Children in Need is a fantastic charity. So, or was it Children in Need or Save the Children?
It's Save the Children. Save the Children.
Oh, Save the Children.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, you can, I believe Ophelia has the VOD up on her channel, which is Ophelia at Twitch, .tv, as well as, if you find Ophelia, any of her links should have a connecting link to the charity. Please feel free if you are capable. And actually, I know several of you were in the D&D session. Several of you did actually donate already. But if anybody does have interest and the means as well, please feel free to go and do so. It's an awesome cause, and I was honored to be part of it. It was a lot of fun for my first real kind of like D&D experience in general. So I guess with that, before we kind of say our goodbyes, I wanted to also shout out, speaking of charities and Extra Life, as a big thank you to everybody who donated and supported however you did, because so many of you did in so many different ways, and I greatly appreciate it. My Extra Life efforts, along with everybody else, Ark and Slick Rick from chat as well, for our marathon, and the Elder Heroes team as a whole. The giveaway that I had mentioned the last couple of weeks of a Skyrim Dragonstone metal tablet, I pulled the winner of the tablet on December 1st. And congratulations to Bribwan, who is actually a Patreon over at Robots Radio for the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. I've had the pleasure of being on shows with him during the Patreon episodes. So huge thank you to everybody who donated, and a massive congratulations to Brib. This isn't yours. Obviously, I sent yours out yesterday. This is mine. I have no idea what number yours is, because you'll find it in the shrink wrap when it finally arrives. But yeah, so that's who the winner is. Thank you again, everybody, with that. And going from there, thank you, Aramithius, for joining me. This was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed this. It's long overdue to have you join us here.
Yes, it has been fantastic fun. So anytime you want this, and I can get agreement from Ali to let me sit alone in a room, sit somewhere else in a room and talk for hours with fellow Elder Scrolls nerds, so shoot me up.
All right, absolutely. And also for all of your stuff, which I highly recommend, where can people find you?
Sure. I'm on Twitter at Aramithius. Written in Uncertainty you can find at writteninuncertainty.com. All of the episodes there, or on any decent podcatcher. I'm also on the Selectives Lorecast, which is a fortnightly thing that's a round table Elder Scrolls Lorecast that's or Elder Scrolls Lore podcast that we basically just pick a topic more or less at random at this point, and talk through it. We had, I think, about 6 hours on the Alessian Rebellion for three episodes over the course of 6 weeks. So we go very, very deep into many and various topics with people who have been playing the games for pretty much since they started coming out, and that's a ton of fun. Written in Uncertainty and the Selectives Lorecast both have attached emails if you want to sling emails to us. Written in Uncertainty podcast at gmail.com and Selectives Lorecast at gmail.com. I'm also in probably an unhealthy amount of Elder Scrolls Discord servers at this point. I think at last count it was over 20.
Oh my god!
So yeah. So if I'm around in the community somewhere, find me, color me. I'm happy to talk lore so long as I have the time. Yeah. And that's about everything from me. So if you see Aramithius anywhere on the internet, it is probably me.
Awesome. And I was going to say, you can follow my Twitch channel because that's where we've been streaming. And we had Ark here last time. We're still discussing kind of like how we'll do the live streams as opposed to the edited version. But yeah, if you ever need to find me, I'm LotusOfDoom on Twitch and Twitter and all that good stuff. But as for everything else related to the show, you can follow everything we do over at dungeoncrawlernetwork.com. There you can find links to all of our social media, including YouTube, Twitter, and Discord. Be sure to check out our Patreon at patreon.com/slash Dungeon Crawler Network if you want to help support the show, and consider leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes so people know that we are a real podcast, that we say real words, and sometimes they matter. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this episode of Tales of Tamriel, and we will see you all again next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
When Akatosh slew Lorcan, he ripped his heart right out. He hurled it across Tamriel, and the heart was heard to shout, red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. The laughing heart sprayed blood afar, a gout on Seer it fell, and like a dart shot to its mark down in an alien well. Magic effused the Lorcan blood to crystal red and strong. Then wild elves cut and polished it down to chimel at a ball. Red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. When elves lost Nirn to men, Akatosh gave the stone to Saint Alesh in token of her right to sit the throne. Red diamond, the heart and soul of men. Red diamond, protect us till the end. Red diamond, protect us till the end.